Percent problems can be solved using proportions or equations. If you're going to use a proportion, you can use either of these formulas to help you. However, when you're solving using equations, you will take the whole and multiply it by the percent. Doing this gets you the part. So when you're using percents, you use them usually to find tax, tip, commission, and then we'll look at a couple more tomorrow. But talking about tax is money that the government collects based on income, sales, or other activities. Tax is considered an additional cost that is added to an original cost. So let's look at a problem that deals with tax. It says Maria buys a new smartphone for $650. The sales tax rate in her state is 7.5%. How much sales tax does Maria need to pay? So we're going to take the cost of the smartphone, which is going to be considered our whole, and multiply that by the percent, which is 7.5. Okay, if you have a calculator that you can type a percent symbol in, you can just type 650 times 7.5%, and that's going to give you $48.75. Now, this is just the tax that she has to pay. It's not the total. We'll solve some problems where we have to find the total also. This is just the tax. If you're using a calculator that you can't type a percent symbol in, you have to convert the percent to a decimal. So 650 times 0.075 equals $48.75. So I would practice doing both of these in my calculator at the same time that I'm doing them on the notes. So going forward, as we're filling out the notes, you should be solving these in your calculator to practice as well. Okay, now let's talk about tip. So tip is money that is given to a worker who performs a service for you. It's also known as gratuity. So sometimes when you go to fancy restaurants, it'll say gratuity instead of tip. So it's important to know that these are the same thing. You could use either word. So tip is also an additional cost that's added to an original cost. So let's look at a problem that deals with tip. It says Ethan and his friends go out to dinner and the bill comes to $85.43. Ethan decides to leave an 18% tip. How much tip should Ethan leave? So we're just looking for the tip. So we're looking for the part that is the tip. We're going to take our original, which is considered our whole, and multiply that by the percent that he's trying to find, which is 18%. Again, if you're using a calculator that has a percent symbol, you can type it in just like this into your calculator. And when you do that, you get $15.38. Now, I rounded to get 38. Remember, when it's 5 or more, raise the score. 4 or less, let it rest. When we're writing money, we always want to leave it in cents. So it needs to be rounded to the hundredths place, which is the second decimal place. So this is how much tip he's leaving. It's not the total. It's not how much he's paying in total. It's just the tip. Okay. So commission is a percentage that's earned from a sale. So people that work in sales earn commission. A lot of times you hear like a car salesman or somebody that's selling like medical equipment might earn a commission. But commission is also an additional payment you earn. Tomorrow we're going to look at vocabulary that is not additional. We have to subtract. But these 3 words that we just talked about are all additional costs that you add. So number 3 says a car salesman earns a 6% commission on each car they sell. If the salesperson sells a car for $35,000, how much commission does the salesperson earn? So we can use that same equation to figure out the commission. So again, that's part equals whole times percent. So I'm going to take my whole, which is 35,000, and multiply that by 6%. And that's going to give me $2,100. This is how much the salesperson is earning just on commission. Okay, so now that we've solved some one-step percent problems, we're going to move into multi-step percent problems, which you still need all of the skills before, you just have to take multiple steps. So number 4 says Sasha and her family went to Taco Mac for her birthday dinner. Their dinner bill came to a total of $103.47. Her family wanted to tip their waitress 35%. What will the total cost of their dinner be? Okay, so it's asking for the total. So before we can find the total, we have to figure out how much she's tipping. To do that, we can use our percent equation. So we're going to take the original price, which is my whole, and multiply that by 35%. When I do that, I get $36.21. Now, this is just how much they're tipping. To figure out the total, we have to take the cost of the original and add that to $36.21, which is my tip, and I get $139.68. So when you're solving these on a quiz or in the real world, it's not going to be laid out tip and total. You have to read the problem and see what it's asking you for. Okay, so number 5 says Maria goes to the grocery store and buys items totaling $75.23. The store charges a 6% sales tax. After the tax is added, how much did Maria spend at the grocery store? So we're looking for the total. So first we have to find how much the tax is. So we're going to take our whole, which is $75.23, and multiply it by 6%. When I do that, I get $4.51. And again, that's just my tax. To find my total, I take my original price and I add the tax to it. So $79.74 is my total. Okay, number 6 is Sarah is buying a new luxury watch for $12,349.50 at a boutique store. In addition to the cost of the watch, she must pay a 15% luxury tax. How much will Sarah spend in total, including the luxury tax? So we're looking for how much she's spending in total. Before we figure out the total, we have to figure out how much the tax was. So I'm going to take the cost of the watch and multiply it by the percent. And that's going to give me $1,852.43. And that's just my tax. To figure out my total, I have to add the cost of the watch to the tax. And that's going to give me $14,201.93. Okay, so number 7 says Jamie is going to the Ford dealership to buy a new Bronco for $67,345.23. He must also pay the salesman a 17% commission in addition to the car. How much will Jamie spend on both the new Bronco and the commission? So I'm going to take my whole and multiply that by my percent. And that's going to give me how much he's paying in commission. So this is my whole. I'm looking for 17% of this, which is my commission. To find my total, I take the cost of the Bronco and I add it to the commission. And that gives me my total cost. Okay. Number 8 says Barb earns a 26% commission on each lab manual she sells. If she sells 1,200 manuals at $9.95 each, we have to find her commission. So this one's a little bit different because we don't know our whole. We don't know the total amount that the manuals sold for. To figure that out, we have to multiply however many manuals there are by how much they cost. So 1,200 times $9.95. And that's going to give me 11,940. Now we can figure out what 26% of the cost is. So we take the cost of the manuals and multiply it by 26%. And that gives me $3,104.40. Now, remember, when you're talking about money, you always have to make sure it's in the hundredths place because it's cents. So if it ends in 0.4 in your calculator, you have to put the 0 or it's wrong. So the commission is $3,104.40. Okay, so number 9 is similar to number 8, and then we've done some like 10 and 11 already. So try to do those on your own, and then check the answer key on Canvas.